from the Mona GeoInformatics Institute, the MGI. She completed her PhD studies in oceanography at the University of the West Indies here, and she also obtained a bachelor's degree in zoology and botany. And she's currently Deputy Director of the MGI, where she manages the Natural Hazards and Environment Division. Welcome to our program, Dr. Maxam.
Thank you.
Very happy to have you.
And special morning.
Hey, Special.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you all?
Boy, the weather not so fabulous, in terms of it's quite dark.
I love the rain.
Yeah, I love the rain, but you're getting bad road as a result, so that's a whole another discussion. But we won't talk about that this morning.
It's very warm over here. Funny enough, people are wearing T-shirts.
Really?
They had Halloween, I think it was 2 days ago, and they were wearing T-shirts, but they normally wear jackets. So I don't know, there's definitely something happening in the environment, and that's maybe reason why the seaweed is...
Exactly what I was thinking as you said that.
Then let's just bring Dr. Maxam in immediately on that. Dr. Ava Maxam, tell us what's really happening with this Sargassum seaweed.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for being with us.
What we're seeing is this sudden explosion in the Sargassum, especially along our equator.
Right.
And so the Caribbean is affected.
Right.
Now, there are a number of things that, a number of theories that have been put out there as to what could be causing this explosion.
Right.
And these include, things that would put more nutrients into the water. So, outflow from the major rivers, southeast of the Caribbean, the Orinoco and Amazon.
I mean, that's up on the tip of the South American continent there. So, coming out of from Brazil and Suriname and Ghana.
Right.
They're pushing more nutrients out, which is feeding the sargassum, which is coming back up to us?
Exactly. So this is one of the theories. And what we need to understand, because this is what MGI is looking at, we're looking at mapping the outbreaks across our island as they happen. And what we also look at is how the currents could potentially affect where the sargassum goes. So when the Orinoco and these rivers release a lot of nutrients into the sea, then there's a major Caribbean current that runs from east to west through the Caribbean, and this is what is carrying the sargassum up towards Jamaica.
But we hear that it's a hazard, like for the sea turtles who get caught in the seaweed, and other cleanup efforts are hampered because of the sheer volume of the seaweed. What impact can it be having on our environment?
Well, when it proliferates in this way, so when it's very, very abundant and it washes up on shore, this is when it can become damaging. You can see fish kills happening because once the sargassum starts to rot, it can deplete a lot of oxygen in the water, and this will rob other marine organisms of the oxygen they need to survive. It can be a hamper to small craft marine traffic.
Right.
Boats would have a problem having to navigate waters with a lot of the seaweed.
But let's bring Special back in the conversation here. Special, have you seen any response? Have you heard anybody changing their travel plans to come to either Jamaica or the Caribbean? Because I know you work all across Toronto there. What kinds of conversation are you hearing people having in respect of this sargassum seaweed and their potential trips to come down? December 15th is usually the start of the tourist season in the Caribbean. What's that looking like?
Well, the only conversation that I had or heard of was maybe a few weeks ago where somebody was talking. At that time, I didn't know much about the damage.
Right.
But somebody had mentioned in a side conversation, that they had to look at another resort. I don't know which one it was, but they were saying because where they would normally stay, it didn't look too good from what they were told by somebody they knew who was there recently.
Okay.
So they were looking at another place to go and spend their time. I think it was for Christmas, to be honest. But that's the only thing I heard. And then I did a little bit of digging up.
Right.
And then, when I say digging up, a little bit of research, a little bit more, and found out that it is not just particular to the Caribbean. This weed is everywhere. It's on the coast of Ghana. It's actually been reported in on the coast of Ireland since 1973, and it's in France. What they were saying was it originally was very polite and tame in the Japanese waters, and it with global warming and everything else, it seemed to have spread. But the problem that I'm seeing with this thing is they're actually saying there is no resolution for this because it grows out in the sea and then it breaks off and it washes up on the shore.
Yeah.
So cleaning the shore is fine, but you're not curing the problem. The problem is it's where it's growing, which is in.
But Dr. Maxam, just a quick question on that though. I know you're doing your mapping, but who is looking at exploring the use of the weed itself? Is there any consideration of that? Because if it naturally occurs, and it seems to have this very high sulfur smell, which is quite quote unquote stink, yes? But if there's such a high sulfur content in it, is there not room for it to be able to use it to do something?
Well, yes, we find other countries using it. It has a high iodine content, so it's useful for treating thyroid disorders, goiters as a diuretic. Very, very useful as a
Goiter, say it again, we're not hearing you so clearly. It's used to treat goiter and thyroid disorders.
But how is it used if NEPA is saying that we shouldn't eat it? What form is it used in to benefit the body?
There would have to be some processing of it before it can be consumed.
What do you mean by that?
So it's as if it's turning it into a pharmaceutical. So instead of just consuming it directly,
Right.
something has to be done to it so that we can use it for consumption.
But then we use Irish moss and spirulina and these other seaweeds. How is it that this is different?
Well, iodine is something that you don't necessarily want to take in very, very large quantities. So you want to be able to restrict or regulate the quantity that you take over time.
Oh, okay. So iodine is a peculiar. So isn't kelp similar?
Well, Sargassum is a brown algae, so it will have slightly different properties from kelp.
Okay.
But it's also very useful as a fertilizer. And, there are other animals that like it. When it's
Really?
separating,
Okay.
or when it's not in abundance like this, turtles have it as food.
But okay, it's for use as a fertilizer then. So is there... All right, let me ask this then. Since we know that you're doing this mapping, and you're going to be able to do some forecasting, it seems. Is there not room then to look at the business aspects of it, to say, look, this thing is going to be around for some time. And here are the possible uses. Is it SRC? Is it RADA? Where is the cooperation that we need to look at to see how we can utilize this natural resource rather than have it sitting there, stinking the place and taking away possible income from the tourist dollar?
Right. Well, I think these organizations are coming together because there have been workshops and meetings and seminars held by various organizations across Jamaica and across the Caribbean. 15 main governments have come together to try and see how they can solve this problem, whether by using up the weed and to some other advantage, or by seeing how they can come up with more efficient methods of cleaning it from our shores.
Well,
There
sir.
are meetings going on.
Okay.
Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Sir Hilary Beckles, has been denouncing the presence of the seaweed in our midst. He's saying it's challenging for our tourist industry, and he's actually saying that it would take at least $120 million and more than 100,000 people to clean up the Sargassum seaweed if we decided to do a cleanup. But he is naming it an international crisis. Do you think it's as serious as that?
Well, remember, these things become serious when they start to affect the economy. So if you have tourists starting to cancel flights, hearing about this thing affecting the seascapes and ruining their beaches, then it becomes a problem. And remember, lots of Caribbean islands rely on their beaches.
Right.
So it has the potential to become a major problem for the Caribbean.
Special mix?
Yeah.
Perhaps this is the time that we should start taking another look at our tourism-dependent economies. What's your own view? Special?
Yes. No, sorry. I thought you were talking to the young lady.
No. We're saying, given that you are in the space that a lot of people come from, to come down here, and with your own inputs in your with your radio station, isn't there not room now for us to have more discussion about how we shift away and are not so dependent on this tourist dollar, and look at what else is there to come? I mean, let me put something to you that came as a conversation that I put up on Facebook too. For the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica, there was they had a business conference this weekend, and Professor Michael Fairbanks raised the issue of becoming a research center. His thing is that rather than depending on the remittance monies, that we should look at remittance of intelligence, that we pull in persons like yourself who have such a wealth of experience, but in the health sector, who can come here and do some very critical research that has impact globally, and so that we get the benefit of the hospitality services as well as the research options. What's your view on that? Because you've been moving around in the space, and then I come to Dr. Maxam and ask her opinion on that.
Well, that's the thing that we've been speaking about for quite a while on this show. They're dependent on two incomes. One is remittance from the diaspora, and two is the tourist. And I've always been a stickler on both of them. I've always been really concerned on not trying to get money from outside just to survive. I've always been, of the mind of trying to generate money from the inside to ship out. Right? So if you're gonna panic because there's some environmental invasion on your land, and it's affecting the tourists, and all you're really concerned about is what are the tourists gonna say, then that to me is small-minded, because what you should be focusing on is let the tourist money or the remittance money be a plus. It's a bonus. It's like a tip. What we should be focusing on is what can Jamaica do independently. I mean, God forbid this really does affect the tourism. Then Jamaica, just like Bermuda, right? Bermuda is solely dependent on tourists and foreign investors. Like this could be a little bit of a wake-up call to say, you know what? All right, we do like the foreign money, but we should be manufacturing. We should be generating products from within and selling it out, just like China did. We should be self-sufficient. At the end of the day, self-sufficient. And if the seaweed comes and we lose a bit of money, it's not going to physically or financially affect us. So maybe this is a wake-up call to say, you know what? We need to really check ourselves. What do we want to be? Do we want to be a service country, or do we want to be a manufacturing, whether it's through internet mindset, whether it's through technology, whether it's through resources? Jamaica needs to be independent.
Dr. Maxam? Yes.
In respect of the opportunities that exist for research, I know that Professor Fairbanks had more been looking at medical, clinical research, but for your area, in respect of the GeoInformatics and checking what's happening with the natural resources, is there room for us to set up adequate research center here in Jamaica that we could earn good income and pull back in, as Professor Fairbanks referred to it, the remittance of intelligence, pull in persons who are Jamaicans, who are overseas, contributing elsewhere to come home and broaden what the GeoInformatics Center is doing and cause us to earn some income from our research?
Oh, sure. There's always room for improving on the research, and I think you'll put forward a good idea, especially if this is something that is going to become the new norm. I mean, with climate change and increasing temperatures,
right?
Some people are expecting that a lot of this sargassum growth that we're seeing is going to become the new norm. So it's something that would have to continuously research, and it would be very, very useful to tap into that pool of funds or grants that could allow us to not just fight the invasion, but see how we can convert it into something that would be very, very useful.
How seriously is your department taking climate change and its various impacts effects on our space?
Well, there's a lot of research going on now, and as a collaboration across the agencies and with the universities across the Caribbean. So we are taking it seriously because there are so many effects that could potentially affect our economy.
And are you having conversations with persons across the region? I mean, Special Mix mentioned that this sargassum is not just here in the Caribbean, but it's in Ghana. It's all over. Have you been having conversations with your counterparts?
Well, we as a research institution, we have not necessarily made direct contact with other continents. So, like researchers, whether it's in Ghana or Mexico. But this is something that we would love to do, and it's something that the entire Caribbean is interested in doing, because the important thing with fighting something like this is that there is a collaboration.
Ah, exactly. There's a text that has come in.
You brought up, the whole point of what can other countries do.
Right.
And I see where Mexico, for example, is switching their focus now on don't just come to our beaches, but try other services that we have here.
Okay. Well, you see that now that wouldn't allow the interior of the country to open up, and comes back to what Diana McIntyre Pike has been pushing for all along, this country resort and the heritage tourism. It allows the opportunity for that to expand.
Exactly.
Well, one listener has texted in, and I'm not sure I agree with all of this, but I'll read it still. It says, "We do not want any foreign investment in Jamaica. All our people at home and abroad need to micro-invest in their country's development. Each parish need to set up their investment packages and place them online for micro-investors. Say you have 3 million people investing $1,000 monthly in a project. The income would be $3 billion monthly, $216 billion annually. So each worker get their payment from the payroll, and this will ensure that the people own their country's assets and not a few foreigners and criminals." Well, I'm not going to read the end of that because he had some words I'm not going to use. But it still shows that people are listening and thinking through what we're saying. So this collaboration that you're speaking of, then, Dr. Maxam, is it something that is likely to come into conversation shortly in your department, so we can begin to expand our collaboration and cooperation on these research matters?
Yes, more than likely, because we are looking now at collaborating with with the other universities and some of the other Caribbean countries. But I must say that it's not, we're not only promoting relying on foreign funding, but of course the private sector would have to get involved, because this is something that will affect our tourism, and that will have trickle down effects to the rest of the economy.
Special, is this something that you're going to raise even in your own space? I know that your programs primarily are entertainment based, but you are thinking people who are part of your conversation. Is this something that you're going to be exploring, to the opportunity for research and what this could mean as in terms, as we said, a remittance of intelligence?
Well, we do a link with Ghana, and when I did the research and I found out that it is also affecting Ghana, but that's not really highlighted heavy, so I'm not sure why. But I am gonna bring it up as one of their station programmers. They can be a topic that we can have together, and I'll maybe put it up, because this thing is actually pretty big. It's like I said, Ireland's been having it since 1973, and it's been really prevalent since 2011, and now it's really picking up a storm, because it's not something you can ignore, and it's not going to go away.
It's not going to go away, right?
And the reason why I think more people now are concerned is because it used to come up on shores, that wasn't really habitated with anybody of significance. Now it's affecting tourism, it's affecting the ecological portion of the islands with the fishes and everything else, and it's a blanket. So if there's no sunlight on the seabed, then you've got problems. Right. And now there's issues, right, with the reefs and stuff. So I think that it's going to get, I don't want to be a pessimist, but it is going to get worse. And the problem is they haven't since now found a cure for it. So I think it's something that has to be collaborated, not just within, sections of the world. It has to be put up somewhere, whether it's via the UN or the WHO, because it is a disaster, to be honest. I think I'm surprised that WHO hasn't brought it up.
Let me ask Dr. Maxam, they mentioned the blooms. Are the blooms peculiar to the Sargassum, or do all seaweeds bloom?
All seaweeds, there are various types of algae. They will bloom if they have the right amount of nutrients, the right water quality conditions, so right temperature, right salinity. They will bloom and cause fish kills. So what we see even as red tide, that's an example of a different type of algae that blooms and can be dangerous.
It's a different type of algae, you said?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not just sargassum that blooms in this way.
Is this all linked to climate change, and what more can we anticipate? I mean, Special says from what he's reading, he's concerned because he thinks it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
You have to do the tracking, you have to do the forecasting. What can we anticipate?
Well, a lot of scientists believe that this will be the trend moving on, because as climate change causes increased temperatures in our ocean.
As climate change causes, I'm sorry, your voice is dropping, so we're not hearing you. Can you speak up a little more for me?
As climate change causes
Right.
increased temperatures
Yes.
in our ocean, then this is something that sargassum likes. It likes the warmer temperatures along with the high nutrient load.
Okay. So it is something we're going to have to prepare for then.
So it's something we have to prepare for, and even things like dust storms. This year, we had been affected quite badly by dust storms coming off of Africa's west coast.
Right.
This is another source of nutrients.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
with dry temperatures,
Yeah.
increasing dust storms, then you find that a lot of these things will combine to have this effect of causing the sargassum to bloom.
Well, maybe what we need to do, I think what Dr. Maxam, I'm putting you on notice then. You see, we're going to call you back and ask if you can come in studio one morning and let's talk about the reality check of climate change, the kinds of things that we need to anticipate and how we need to prepare for them. Because I think of my own family. I mean, I don't suffer from asthma, but my children are asthmatic, and there are a number of people who are that way. How are we to anticipate what kind of impact these changes will have, and how do we prepare for it,
Yeah, sure, I'll be happy to.
All right, Special, any last word on this just as we're closing off?
Well, like I said, it's very warm. It's the 2nd of November. Christmas is not too far away. I don't know if we're going to see any snow, because right now people might be putting on their suntan lotion for Christmas. It's definitely getting warmer. There's definitely a climate
change.
And we can't be stupid enough to believe
I
that
hear you.
So we got no hurricanes this year. Not that we don't have a month left,
Well,
but
not good.
knocking wood. Yeah, but something is different these days.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Ava Maxam, thank
Okay.
you so much. Special, walk good.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Take
All
care.
right then. Well, that's it for our big picture discussion. We take a short break and we come back to take your calls here on Fresh Start.